I am unashamed. What about you?
Welcome back to Unashamed. So, Zach, you and I got a video yesterday.
Oh my gosh. There's certain things that they get sent to you, and you're like, I cannot unsee this. And
well, after all the things we've called Jase through the years, I never thought we would call him Batman.
Well, what's funny, but you know what's funny about the video, which we'll tell you what it was in a second. I remember there was a video that got circulated on the internet about myself that involved a critter crisis in my home, and Jase relentlessly trolled me on the podcast. You probably didn't remember that for my reaction to how I dealt with the squirrel. But what we saw was,
which, by the way, I got the same treatment about the coons down here, the raccoons down here. Same treatment.
No, you got to remember.
Yeah.
I think we have a little different circumstance, because the video
it's always different when it's
always
different.
Which we will not share because it was my wife in a very vulnerable situation, and she's like, "We're never sharing that outside of the family," because she is screaming at the top of her lungs.
It was almost an inhuman. I mean, like it sounded like an animal,
it's like a horror
in
film.
the woods.
She was like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "No, it's not something crazy. It's just this is." I didn't know what it was at first, honestly.
Yeah,
I got to tell you what I saw. My first interpretation of it was there was a.
Here we go. We always get an interpretation from an apologetics expert on what happened, and you hadn't even heard the story.
I just watched the video.
Give me the interpretation, then I'll tell you the story.
Okay, so first of all, we're all from Louisiana, which in Louisiana that I know of, I don't think lacrosse is an actual thing, right? But it looked like you had on a lacrosse uniform. I didn't know it was you. I honestly did not know it was you.
Zach, I had a football helmet on.
Well, what was in the hand? What was in your hand?
Some kind of
like a basket.
I had gloves. Well, I had two different gloves because I couldn't, under all the panic of the moment.
Yeah.
Because, can I just tell you the story?
Tell us the story. Dude.
Okay.
But I do want you to tell us also what you were wearing, because that's what threw me off.
Well, I'm going to have to think about what I was wearing.
I know you were wearing I saw the boots you were wearing, which is one of our sponsors. So I did
have those.
He had the Brunts on.
You know why I had those boots on? Because they're the only pair of boots that I own now that I can just slip my foot in without having to untie the laces.
Yeah.
And so I was under a lot of pressure to get armor on quickly.
I did say, and this is not an ad, but I did notice. I said he's wearing the Brunts, and the rest.
Right, let me tell the story, or we're going to spend the whole podcast trying to break down what happened in my house, which was pretty epic. And the back history of this, Betty will have to look it up, but I had an encounter with some bats a few podcasts ago. Maybe.
I think it was a year ago around this time, actually.
Maybe a year ago, maybe two. And what I was by myself. And look, I spent on what happened then. Yesterday was about a 6-hour excursion, battle.
Battle.
A year ago, it was 3 days. I was by myself. And but this was a little different situation. What happened when we figure out when that was, because we did a podcast about it, and I posted a video on or had someone do it because people weren't believing me. But one time I videoed when I was walking in the door, and I had a family of bats that just were flying around my house. Inside the house, room to room, and I could not figure it out. And it took me 3 days to get them out. And I actually lured them out a door. I had all the inner doors closed and the outside doors open.
Yeah.
And it was 3 days because then they would all land behind, crevices or anything, and they were just like, "This is where we're living." I'm like, "You can't live here because I live here." And so I would take a fishing rod and I would like poke one and then they would start flying again. And then I would try to get them outside. That went on for 3 days. So it's like every time I came out of my bedroom, I had the helmet on, and I had a big sheet. But anyway, that was the backstory. This was a lot different because we're watching the LSU game, so I don't know when this will be released. But this was, if you want to think back to people who follow this, so LSU played UCLA and there was a rain delay. So they had to finish the game at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we're watching the game, Missy and I, and they wind up winning. So we're like, yeah, all right. And maybe it was the racket because, when I watch a LSU game and they're in the College World Series, I'm getting loud. And I had been really loud because one time something happened and I just started hollering loud. Well, my dog started howling. Well, then I started howling because I was like, this is fun, Missy had actually gone to the bathroom and she was like, what is all the howling? And I was like, oh, I was telling her about the play. And she's like, why are you howling with the dogs? I was like, well, they started it. They were. So all of a sudden the game ends and Missy starts screaming, just ear piercing. And I look up and there is a bat flying at, I don't know what speed and short bursts, but the bat is on top of her head. Like, ooh. I mean, just down in her business. She has the blanket. She had a blanket on the couch. We're in the living room. And she's just screaming. Well, I get up and I said, run, because I thought it looked like it was going to attack her. But she wouldn't run. She was paralyzed with fear because she doesn't like critters anyway. Well, I thought I need some armor. I had a pair of shorts on, no socks and shoes and a shirt. I'm like, I got to get some armor. And next thing you know, I found 2 different color gloves. I put like a kind of like a sweatshirt that you zip up. I don't even know where I got it because I thought I don't want the thing bite me. It may have rabies because it was being aggressive. I grabbed a dustpan and a broom, and which is just all I could find in the moment. And I put a helmet on, my son's helmet. I just put it on. I actually had to remove the ear flaps because it wouldn't fit. Put the helmet on and slipped on those boots, put a pair of pants on, put the boots on. Well, when I came back out, Missy's still screaming. Now there's 3.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. And she's like, they're coming out of the fireplace. Because she saw one, she would like pull the blanket down, then see another one, and then scream. So I start opening the doors, closing the inner doors, because I was like, infestation. So I get the 3 bats out after an hour of just that game. And so we're like, oh, that was funny. We sent y'all the video, during all that, but it wasn't high quality video either. And she's screaming the whole time. So you don't even know what's going on. So we're like, oh, that happened. Good job. That's my mountain man getting the bats out. Nobody got bit. Everything's happy, Well, then I had a thought. I thought, because I said, do you think they came out of the fireplace? She's like, I'm positive one of them came out of the fireplace. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a fire. Because I thought there's 3 of them. I'll build a fire. And if there's some like in the chimney, they'll fly out. And that'll be all of that. So I put all this wood. You got to remember it's 94 degrees outside, and I'm building a fire. So at this point, with all the screams and my neighbors seeing me build a fire, they think I've literally lost my mind.
They may not be far from the truth.
As soon as that fire, because I had a fire starter, as soon as we had, those bats came out of there.
And they didn't go up. They came out.
Oh, they came out.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, we went from Missy to screaming. She did the same. We kind of had the same thing going, but now they just came out and started landing everywhere in the curtains, on the couch, some were flying. And I ran, and I was like, save yourself. All bets are off.
All of a sudden, the inner field comes out. It's every man for himself.
All right, Jase is opening up his gifts right now.
Hey.
What's your first impression, Jase?
Let me tell you, the softness of this is a thumbs up. And look, they actually took a pair of jeans and made them soft. Please tell us who this is.
Oh, it's True Classic Tees. I've actually got mine on right now. And here's what I always hate about T-shirts or any shirts you buy. You buy them, they fit perfect. You go home, you wash them, and everything loses its form. 2 or 3 washes are done. I'm like, I don't even want to wear it anymore. That's why I love these guys at True Classic Tees. This apparel is amazing. I got my jeans on, I got my shirt on. Al, you got some coming to you as well. So stand by.
I'm excited to come home now. If I have a package waiting on me, it's exciting.
Zach, that shirt actually makes you look like you have muscles.
It really does. They fit. Like I was like looking in the mirror. I was like, man, I got some guns right now.
I can't wait to get some then.
So if you got a dad bod and you want to look like you don't have a dad bod, True Classic Tees is what you're looking for. They're tailored where you want them to be tailored and relaxed where you want them to be relaxed. So bunching, no stiff fabric, just a clean, effortless style that actually works for real life. As you can see, I'm wearing one right now. With intention behind everything they do, True Classic Tees fit right, feel amazing, and they don't bust the budget. True Classic is built for comfort, built to last, and it's built to give back. Forget overpriced designer brands. We're ditching all that. Ditch the disposable fast fashion and get True Classic. You can grab them at Target, Costco, or head to trueclassic.com/Robertson and get hooked up today. That's trueclassic.com/Robertson.
And so some of you are thinking, well, I was just thinking they must have built a nest at the top of the chimney. Let's send a little smoke up there. And
a little smoke signal.
Yeah, they'll leave is what I was thinking. So that triggered a different response. And, here they came. So at some point in there, Missy, I heard her say, because I'm outside now trying to figure out a plan. There's bats flying around inside my house. At some point, she said, I can't take it anymore. And she just bolted because I had the door open, So now she's outside where she remained most of the day. Mm-hmm. And so I went back in and just carefully got them to fly because I had armor on. And just one by one, got rit of them. Moved
them on.
Yeah, moved them on. I'm like, go live somewhere else. My house is closed for bat habitation. But it did take 6 hours. I sweated immensely. There were lots of screams and now, so we're at that.
You had
stage.
A nice roaring fire to warm up.
Had a nice fire, and we haven't seen a bat since. So I'm like, I guess that's all. They moved on, but still, everybody, and I say everybody, Missy and I, we're tiptoeing through the house because Missy, she wound up in the bedroom with the door closed, which it had been closed during the whole thing. So she feels like that's her safe place, Yeah. And so this morning I was out and about because what happened is then it turned into a massive fly infestation because I had the doors open in the summertime for 6 hours. So the fly swatter turned into a fly swatter. There were hundreds of flies everywhere.
I've said it many times before. I love my state. It's where I'm from. I grew up there, but it is a place not fit for human habitation. I mean, it's a land of things that want to annoy and hurt you. That's
it turned into, kind of the 10 plagues thing.
Yeah.
We
already had
gnats.
frogs.
I had my
earlier.
main 3 things were the bats, the gnats, and the flies.
Yeah.
Those were the 3.
But you were well protected,
plagues.
though, from at least because you had on gloves, you had on like some kind of defensive stick.
Well, it was a lot like. Do y'all remember the
a-
movie The Great Outdoors when they with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd, and they had a bat come in? It reminded me of that because when everybody dressed up trying to get the bat out of the house. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was telling this story, and they said, well, Louisiana has a law where you can't kill bats. And I'm like, because we called the professionals. Then I was like, I can't. What if one was flying to your face or whatever? And they're like, hey, that's what it says. So I looked it up, and it actually was like, call the professionals. You know what's weird about this? My wife called every professional in the Twin City, and you know what they all said? We don't do bats. Good luck
with that.
So she's like, babe, get the bats out. And I'm like,
it's kind of
so
put
let
you
me
in a
get
bind.
this right.
You can't kill them, but you got to get them out of your house.
Yeah. And,
It's
so
a
I'm
real
thinking,
thing.
I think whoever wrote that law was probably living in a place where, there wasn't a lot of bats. But anyway, I did the best I could.
You did the best you could.
I did the best I could to protect my wife. Because at the end of the day, when she's not happy, she's like, I don't know if I can live here. I mean, she was literally threatening to leave the premises.
Well, it's a
for the
scary thing.
future.
We had the same experience when we first moved up here to North Carolina. My brother bought a house in Montreat. It was an old house, real old house. And he invited the whole family over and some friends, and we were going to have like a worship night and just pray over their new house. And so they had no furniture in the house, and we're all sitting there, probably about 30 of us, just worshiping, playing songs. And all of a sudden the same thing happened out of the chimney. Some bats came out, and it was like utter chaos. We got it on video, but it was utter chaos because it is scary. They're quick, and you don't realize it.
Did you raise a hallelujah after that?
I saw them up close. They're really, they're not that big of a creature except for their teeth and their wings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they are.
If you get an up close look,
I tell you what, though, if you're in Louisiana, and I was going to do this when I lived down there, I was going to build a bat cave, like a bat house on my property, because they're extremely efficient and aggressive in going after mosquitoes. And so if you build, what you need to do is build you a bat house outside your house, and that's where they'll roost. They'll transfer everything, and then they'll eat every single mosquito. You want them around because they will. I mean, I'll tell you, clean.
Sounds like a good way to die of rabies at some point.
You got it. They'll wipe out the mosquitoes. You want them.
Zach thinks he's Batman now.
You want them.
So, Jase,
there you go. Well, I was just going to say that's a good illustration on one. Why you should put armor on, because only then did I feel powerful.
Yeah, it was.
And
it was Ephesians 6.
There's a spiritual application.
You didn't look that. You didn't look that powerful in the video I saw. You looked. Did not. I would not say powerful was not the look that I was going for.
I had a football helmet on.
Yeah,
he's
look
not
like,
coming through that.
I know, but you didn't look confident in your posture. Is what I'm saying.
Well, I sent you the video within the first hour. My confidence grew.
Okay. I didn't see that part.
Yeah.
Well, here's the take I took. So you spent the same amount of time dealing with the bats that you did on this rabbit hole study of the Son of Man. That was the application I took to get us back to where we were on the last podcast.
Well, it was a crazy story I thought I'd share. I'm
so glad you did. I laughed so hard at that video.
I think deep down you think, why is this happening? Because the plagues, were for a reason. And so Missy and I, it was weird because she was in such a vulnerable state. She was snapping at me, and because the situation was terrifying for her. One time, which the one thing I regret during the whole procedure is because one of her friends came over during the ordeal, and I thought she was going to help me or something. I was like, why would you come over here? Oh, no, she's just consoling Missy, trying to get her to get through it. And so they were looking, they thought they saw something, and I was just walking by. And so, very sneakily, I just kind of pinched Missy's leg.
Oh, no.
That was a bad move. That was the one mistake. Because when I looked at her, fire came out of her. I could just tell, and I was like, I shouldn't have done that. It was too soon. It was too soon. But
you couldn't help yourself, could you?
So I'm not sure she's over that yet. And thinking back on it, why would I do that? I should not have done that. So I do repent of that because that sent her just off the rails.
All right. Well, we're glad you're in a repentant mode today. I think Jase has earned a Batman nod.
Hey, just want to remind you guys real quick, too, about our heyjack.com special. Last week, if you want to sign up for tremendous savings on travel hotels, you can sign up this week, and we're going to give $500 away to somebody who signs up, but you only got less than 1 week left. I'm talking about real savings here, guys, but you got to sign up now if you want to get the entered into the drawing to win $500.
So we were talking about the Son of Man. And Jase took us through the book of Daniel, some tie-ins in the book of Revelation, because the what set it all up was the question in our ongoing narrative of questions. If you notice, I sent y'all a hard copy of this now. We're up to 9. And some of them are kind of double questions. But the last one says, do you believe in the Son of Man, which was John 9:35, which led Jase on a equivalent bat time of 6-hour study. And it was really pretty fascinating, I thought, the last time we got into this. But you were about, I think, Jase, to shift over to Ezekiel chapter 2.
So, Al, last time I was at your place at the compound, I noticed that Jay has a certain affinity for a certain blue heeler.
Well, it's interesting because everybody at our house has their favorite dog, of course. And there's a blue heeler there named Libby. That we got from Phyllis and Tony, and Jay loves that dog. She's super smart. She always knows when it's Ruff Green time, which Jase has our Ruff Green products there in front of him.
Well, most of us live routine lives. We have our work, our home, our family, and it's like repeat day in and day out. Not a lot changes for a lot of us. But what about your dog? Whether you've noticed it or not, your dog is changing. And at some point, they're going to start to slow down, and maybe they already have. Your dog has always been there for you. Now it's your turn to be there for your dog. And Ruff Greens is just that. It's not a replacement for your dog food. It's the live nutrients missing from your dog's food.
Our dogs look forward to it every day. They line up, they got their spots, and they're ready to receive their Ruff Greens. Their coats look great. They've never been healthier.
Fetch a free Jumpstart trial bag for your dog today. Just cover shipping. Call them at 214-RUFF-DOG or go to ruffgreens.com and use discount code Unashamed. That's RUFFgreens.com. Discount code Unashamed or call 214-RUFFDOG. Ruff Greens, a healthy change for your changing dog.
Well, and look, we kind of did more in Daniel that I'll do in Ezekiel. I mean, because to do it right, we're not Bible scholars or experts. If you hadn't read Ezekiel or Daniel lately, you start reading, and the imagery is all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? They're seeing visions when this little phrase, I looked up and saw a vision in heaven. Well, they're then, from a human perspective, in the spirit, as the Bible says, are trying to describe what they saw. And I believe it's a combination of not having the right English vocabulary to describe it, and just it's kind of like, you remember when Paul was caught up to the third heaven. I'm not sure where that is off the top of my head. Somewhere in Corinthians.
It's in 2 Corinthians 12.
Good. Oh, you're right. 2 Corinthians 12. Look, I think what the most interesting phrase in that is, if he was like, I'm not allowed to speak or able to speak about what I saw. So that's what I'm trying to. Al, when I saw something fly by there, anything that flies,
it was a moth.
It's all PTSD.
Yeah, but I think one of the most interesting phrases, because most scholars believe that Paul, when he's telling this story kind of in the third person, and I think we've talked about this before, but it's like he's talking about himself. But he makes a statement. He's like, I was caught up to the third heaven. And he says this twice. That's why I'm bringing it up. He says, whether in the body or outside of it, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So whatever state he was in, and then he says it again. He's like, "What? I heard inexpressible things that man is not permitted to tell." The first thing he says, "I just saw things that are hard to tell." Then it's like, "Are not permitted to tell." And then he says it again, "Whether I was in the body or outside the body, I really don't know." So I think you get that feel from Ezekiel, even in the visions that we kind of quickly went through in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 and the ones referenced in Daniel 8. But I did want to bring this one point up about Ezekiel, because in chapter 1, and I mean, this vision is woof, but I'll read just a couple verses of it, because I just want to make one point, and I think you'll see why I'm making the point about the Son of Man. But the first verse at the end there of Ezekiel 1, where it says, "The heavens were opened and I saw visions of God." So he starts, talking about these kings, and then it says, verse 3, "The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel." So in verse 4, "I looked and saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal. And in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures." I'm going to stop right there, because these 4 living creatures are going to be explained. I'm going to fast forward and just kind of give you the overview, and y'all can jump in when you want. So in Ezekiel 10, he basically brings this vision back up, and he describes what he saw in the 4 living creatures, which are the cherubim, so there's some kind of angelic presences in heaven. That's what they are. So that's not debatable. I mean, everybody kind of agrees with that. And they're actually brought up, is it in Ezekiel 4? I mean, not Ezekiel 4, Revelation 4.
Yeah.
And 5. You see the same imagery. Which is the reason I'm bringing this up, is because when you just go to the book of Revelation and start reading, and people are like, "What is all this about?" Well, a lot of it was already written, same terminology in the book of Ezekiel and Daniel. So where I wanted to focus in on is when you get to the end of chapter 1 in Ezekiel, above the 4 angelic cherubim, the angels that we talked about, watch what he describes in 25. Then there came a voice from above the expanse over their heads as they stood with lowered wings. So these are the creatures, but he's above them. Mm-hmm. In verse 26, above the expanse over their heads was what looked like a throne of, let me see if I can pronounce this rock, lapis lazuli, and some of the translations have a sapphire. So I looked up that lapis lazuli, which is a stone that it's kind of blue, and it comes from being crushed, oddly enough. But so he just sees this brilliant stone, something that looked like it, because like I said, it's hard to describe. And high above on the throne was a figure like that of a man. Ooh. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. I saw that from what appeared to be his waist up, he looked like glowing metal, as if full of fire, and that from there down, he looked like fire, and brilliant light surrounded him, like the appearance of a rainbow. Now, the reason I wanted to get to this, because when you read Revelation 4 and 5, and you see this picture of throne and the 4 living creatures, which are the angels, well, guess what John saw? He saw a figure like, a lamb. Now, he uses lamb there, but we know who the lamb is, as if he had been slain. And guess what was around him? This rainbow. So same terminology. So like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so is the radiance around him. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. Well, that basically tells you all you need to know. All right, so for the purposes of what I wanted to show is the next 3 verses. So then at the end of chapter 1, it says, when I saw it, I fell face down and heard the voice of one speaking. So who does that sound like? John in chapter 1, when he saw the vision that we read from Daniel, the same terminology, well, that's the same response he had. And it was kind of like Paul saying, hey, whether I was in the body, I don't, he had another trance-like deal. But watch what chapter 2:1 says. He said to me, well, look at what he uses this phrase. Right after that is recorded, he says, Son of man, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you. Now he's calling Ezekiel, literally. If you look at your heading above the chapter 2, it says Ezekiel's call. So here's my point. I think it's interesting that you're getting a preview of someone being called to be a representative to, unfortunately, kind of pronounce judgment on Israel's nation, because he goes on into chapter 2 and says, that's why I'm calling you. I'm not sure where that is. Maybe I can scroll through here and see it, but I'll read verse 2. As he spoke, the Spirit came into me and raised me to my feet, and I heard him speaking to me. He said, well, look what he said. Here it is again. You're just like, I thought we just read that. He called him Son of Man. Oh, here it is. Yeah. I am sending you to the house of Israel, or the Israelites, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their fathers have been in revolt against me to this very day. So he kind of gives the purpose of why he's calling him. But he goes on to use that phrase, Son of Man. You know how many times in Ezekiel that he refers to him as that? 44 times. So there has to be a reason, and I think it's a shadow. Most scholars kind of stay away from what I'm introducing here, because I went and looked it up. I didn't see a lot of people there was a couple who kind of had the same thought I had, but I just thought, he said it 44 times. Ezekiel was basically God's representative. Well, Daniel, we know it's talking about Jesus, because he wasn't talking about himself, and he's going to establish his kingdom in the time of those kings. And so I think we all, or most, agree on that.
Yeah, I think there is. I think when you go back to that passage in John 9, when he says, do you believe in the Son of Man? There is that idea that associated with the Son of Man is that in whoever this figure is, obviously we believe it's the figure from Daniel 7, that he will pronounce judgment. I mean, there is this idea of judgment, because there's other verses, if you do a search on it, John 5, it says the Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son. So this is, again, that's the idea of Daniel chapter 7, where the Son of Man has received the dominion, the authority, the kingdom. It says, and he has given him authority to execute judgment, because he is the Son of Man. And then in Matthew 5:25, it says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he sits on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another. So the Son of Man's role is going to be this role of judgment. The Son of Man, Matthew 13, will send angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. And so, I mean, you keep on Acts 17. I mean, think about the Acts 17 verse when he says that God has fixed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed. Well, when did he appoint him? That's the Daniel 7 passage. And of this, he has given us assurance by raising all men from the dead. Then Revelation 14, then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like a son of man. So he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle across the earth, and all the earth was reaped. So I do think that when Jesus asked the blind man, and really kind of the Pharisees too, and do you believe in the Son of Man? He's really asking, do you really believe that I'm in control, or that you're in control, that God's in control, or are you in control? Who actually is the judge? Because what our default position is when you say the name of Jesus, the default position that we think in our mind, because we've seen the pictures in Sunday school, is we imagine Jesus petting a lamb, Or we imagine the Jesus with the kids around him, but he's like nice Jesus. It's like Talladega Nights. He's nice Jesus. What you don't typically think of as your default is the figure from Daniel 7 or Revelation chapter 1 with the fiery eyes, the one that was so fearful and so powerful that Paul saw on the Isle of Patmos. He fell on his face as though he was dead. So I think there is this really, really powerful picture of just sovereign power that so often we forget that that's who Jesus is, because we focus only on what he did, that we forget who he is that did the thing that he did on the cross.
Oh, yeah. I mean, me and you didn't consult on this, but I went the same direction, and my example was going to be from Luke, because you got to remember where we're at in John 9, they were having trouble seeing who Jesus is.
Yeah.
And
because they're thinking they know he's a threat, but they're like he's a guy, he's threatening our power structure, but they're not seeing who is this one in front of us. They're not seeing it, willfully not seeing it.
And the guy who was physically blind, he goes through this process of declaring Jesus as Lord way after his healing, because we read the whole story. And that came from Jesus asking him that question, who do you believe, or do you believe in the Son of Man?
Yeah.
So that's where this all came from. So, and then he called him Lord and worshiped him. So I wanted to show exactly what you just got through illustrating through those other passages in a couple passages in Luke, because I think this ties into John 9, and I know it's taken 3 podcasts to get here, but I want to read this. So in Luke 7, jot this down, you can read it later. In verse 29, all the people, even the tax collectors, when they heard Jesus' words, acknowledged that God's way was right, because they had been baptized by John.
Where's this at? Luke what?
Luke 7:29. So when he gets to verse 30, he says, but the Pharisees and experts in the law rejected God's purpose for themselves, because they had not been baptized by John. So he makes a distinction on part of the Pharisees' problem here, because they would not surrender. They weren't open-minded to this coming. What was John the Baptist's role? To prepare the way for the one to come. And so when he goes on to say in Luke 7, he starts talking about this generation, and he gets to verse 33 and says, for John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and they say he has a demon, because they weren't embracing him. But then verse 34 says, the Son of Man, there's that phrase again. We're going back to Daniel 7, 13 and 14, and this picture of Ezekiel, came eating and drinking, and you say, here's a glutton and a drunkard and a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by our actions. That's why Jesus kept saying, why don't you just believe based on the fact of what I'm doing? So I read that to preview, and I'm going to end with this because I know we're almost out of time. In Luke 22, this is fascinating. Just watch this picture, and I'm going to select these verses. You remember when Judas came and kissed Jesus?
Yeah.
In verse 40, Jesus asked Judas, he asked him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? What are the implications of that after reading Daniel 7, 13, and 14? So here's a power, human power, betrayal that he's taking on.
Yeah.
Then read 53. Every day I was with you in the temple courts. This is when Jesus' disciples pulled their swords out, and they thought it was going to be a physical war. And it says, every day I was with you in the temple courts, and you did not lay a hand on me. But this is your hour when darkness reigns. So he's going to take on other powers, including the evil one, the celestial forces, and the powers that were in charge from Rome. But watch what it goes on to say, and here's what I want to get to, and we'll end here. So when you go to chapter 22 and verse 66, watch this when he's before Pilate. At daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and teachers of the law, met together And Jesus was led before them. If you're the Christ, they said, tell us. Jesus answered, if I tell you, you will not believe me, and if I ask you, you would not answer. Verse 69, key verse. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. I mean, he hadn't even died yet, and he's coming up with this exaltation and authority at the right hand of God. When you go to Daniel 7 after seeing that, they asked, are you the Son of God? Here's what's fascinating. You know what his answer was? His other phrase, you're right in saying, I am.
There you go.
Isn't that fascinating?
All right. We got a lot more to say about it because there's a nice bridge in here to John 10 as well. But we're going to have a guest on the other side of this break. And she had a vision, which was really interesting, that led her to a life change. So we have a little testimony to tie off this podcast. So we'll see you on the other side of this break. We are super excited with our guest that we have, Kim Bright, who's the founder of Brightcore Nutrition. She's been helping folks with nutrition and wellness for nearly 50 years, and she's joined us on the Unashamed podcast. Kim, welcome.
Thank you all. I'm glad to be here, and I'm just blessings to your family with what you've gone through lately with losing your leader of your band. So God bless y'all.
Well, the patriarch has blazed the trail, and before we came on air, you were telling me a little bit about your background, and you've been a little bit. You're like Johnny Cash. You've been everywhere, man.
I'm even wearing black like Johnny did.
You are, and looking lovely from Florida today. So
thank you very much.
And I guess you were a model and actress, right? So tell us a little bit about give us the short version of the Kim Bright story for our audience.
Well, we'll have to be Cliff Notes because it's a long one. But, I never dreamed that I'd end up in nutrition or helping people with their health, which I've done for almost 50 years now. And people used to ask me, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it was always, well, I love to sing in church. I love to sing at school, and I love to act and dance and play instruments and all that. So maybe I'll just be an actress. And then after I get real good at that, then I'll produce and direct and make a lot of money and come back and build houses for all my family, and then go to Kentucky where some of my kinfolk are from and have my horse farm because we were too poor to have a horse for me. So I did make it out to Hollywood. I did do the modeling and acting for a couple of years. But before I get into that little story, because I was, out there living in the world and for the world. But before I get into that, I come from a family of rednecks, and all of them had addictions, both sides. Yeah. My mama's daddy had alcoholism, and I remember as a child, he had a beer in one hand all the time, and then he'd have his old coffee, can where pating, pating, that was spitting that tobacco out.
We know that sound.
And then, he died mid-50s. We lost him. And then my daddy, his side, they didn't drink, but they loved sugar. And my grandma made homemade everything from scratch. We always had lots of sugar. He had obesity problems. He was an alcoholic, and he was addicted to tobacco, and he died early at age 51. So I had all this in my background. And by the time I got out to LA, I was drinking with the best of them. Some of my good friends were professional football, basketball, and baseball players. I drank them under the table all day long until, I didn't. And one day I had a near-death experience from drinking all that alcohol. Mm-hmm. And eating sugar constantly and 20 cups of coffee a day. And all of a sudden I was above my body, and I saw it. And then I was in a tunnel, and all of a sudden then I was this bright golden white. And it's not even describing it when I say bright golden light. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden my maker was there, and he said, did you do what you were going to do down there? And I said, no. And he goes, you got a choice. You either stay here or you go back. Wow. And I said, I'm going back. I need to go back. And boom, I was back in my body, and I felt somebody shaking it. And I opened my eyes, and everything changed. The good Lord put me on a different path. Holy Spirit directed me from there on out to nutrition. I read everything I could. There's a Bible verse that really says it all, because it's 3 Corinthians, if I can get it here. It's chapter 3 and First Corinthians chapter 3, 16 and 17. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. Yeah, I was destroying my temple,
Yeah.
I was destroying my temple. I was defiling it. And so what happened was Holy Spirit directed me. I walked into my first health food store, started studying up everything and realizing that all of my health and sickness had started in my gut. And that I had to understand why at age 20, I got this way. How did I come to be like this? How did my family die so young? So what I started studying was all the stuff about the gut. And I found out that, we've got in our gut all these microbes. And it's kind of like good and evil down there. God put them there, and there's good bacteria, and there's the guys, molds, fungus, yeast, and parasites that are supposed to be there, but they're supposed to be far less than the good guys. And what happens with our diet that we've been eating, we get an overgrowth of the bad guys. So those guys are there in order to just tear us down when we're ready to go to the grave. But most people are dealing with those on a daily basis, and they've got constipation and bloating. They can't think right. Their heart doesn't work right. Everything's not working right, because when you've got a dirty gut with these guys, you've got thick blood, dirty blood. You can't carry the nutrients to your brain, to your heart, to all your organs right. And you can't carry oxygen. So you don't think right. Everything's going wrong, short circuiting. And then you can't carry the toxins out. So what happened then 28 years ago, I started Brightcore. And we want to deliver only the best to people to help them get healthy. And what we've got here is dealing with 70% of our immune system in our gut. And we want to make people as healthy as possible. So we found out about a food that's, I studied this food. I studied many different foods, fermented foods. And this is the king of fermented foods called Kimchi One. Kimchi. And we put it in a capsule called Kimchi One to help people clean their guts up and not have this war going on with this fight for good and evil, and make it really good there, so we can be connected to Holy Spirit, God, and think right too. So that's a little bit there.
I love it. I mean, you speak so much into what we've been talking about, Kim, for a long time on this podcast, and that is that bringing together of spiritual and physical, because we are whole and made in the image of God. And I love it that it was a spiritual experience that led you to some physical freedom and understanding. I had a similar situation at 18, different from yours, and my results were different, but I had the same getting on the right path. And that's what changed me and led me. And there's a sign for those of you listening behind Kim that says, with God, all things are possible. And I love that, because that's exactly what set you there, right? Which is
that's
a great
right.
blessing.
He refreshed, renewed. He gave my life back to me. And this is the path. This is my mission that I've been on, helping people for almost 50 years now with their health, and not having to deal with all the poisons in their food, leading them into hospitals, on drugs. There's so many poisons in our soil, in our food, in our air, and they've affected us. And we need to get back to eating foods that will restore our health. What God originally put here, how he put it here, not man-altered things, not ultra, processed sugars and all these other foods. So these fermented foods that I'm talking about really give you health. And the king of the fermented food, of course, is kimchi.
So, Kim, tell us a little bit about some of the specific blessings of Kimchi One. What it is and what it does for us when we take it regularly, which is what you have for our audience.
Kimchi One is from kimchi, which is the top fermented food in the world. It's got just tons of research done on it. It's been around for centuries. It has over 900 different strains of probiotics, which means for life. And so many people out there are overdosing on antibiotics against life, which grow the bad critters instead of the good guys in our gut. So we took this incredible food, because most people don't like the taste that are American. They don't like the smell. It's very different. And we put it in a capsule so you can have all these benefits of its special, unique strains of probiotics and the over 900 probiotics that are there. So we put it in a capsule so you can take it every day, because you need your gut needs it every single day. We are bombarded with all of these poisons in our food, our air, and our water. So unless we're taking this every single day, our gut can't keep up with things, and it just overpopulates with the bad guys. So, you've got that power of fermentation, that gut that's so important, the serotonin, the feeling good hormones made in our gut too, the majority of it. And so many people are dealing with constipation, diarrhea. They can't digest things. They have headaches. They can't think straight. They have brain fog. They've got diabetes. With taking the kimchi, there's so many studies that show that when people use this every day, their waistline comes down. They drop weight. They can think straight again. Their diabetes lessens. Everything starts to change in their body because everything's connected to our gut. So you see all these great things. We have thousands of testimonies of people that have changed their lives by using this every day. And even people that took these vaccines that had so many bad effects, in 2020. And we have incredible testimonies from those people.
Well, I love it. I love what it's obviously meant in your life. And I'm very grateful that God has led you to the point where you can help other people. And Zach's right. I've recently lost 70 pounds. I'm more aware now more than ever of physically how that helps me be a fully spiritual being to help other people. And you can't do that if you're not healthy. And so I'm very excited about trying this product myself. You got a special offer for our audience. Can you tell us about what the offer is?
Yes, I do. And I want to say this is completely made in the United States, non-GMO, non-dairy, non-soy, none of, gluten-free and all that. So the offer that we want to offer today, so everybody can get healthy and take care of their temple. You want a happy gut, not one at war. So our exclusive today is go to mybrightcore.com/unashamed. And we'll give you 25% off your order by using the code Unashamed. Or you can call in to 888-404-9677. And I really like you to do that because I'm an educator and I want you to understand what's going on. And we've got great people on the phones that want to talk to you. They're not AI. They're not from some foreign country. They're here in America.
Praise
they like
the Lord.
to talk and listen to you. And when you call in to that number, 888-404-9677, we're going to give you up to 50% off and include free shipping. And if you're one of the first 100 callers, we're also going to give you a free bottle of vitamin D3, which is so great for your bones and all kinds of health, eye health, everything. So call now, 888-404-9677.
Thank you, Kim. All right, Unashamed Nation, it's time to get some Kimchi One going. So let's make those calls. Let's jump in there and let's get those guts out of the war zone and a lot healthier. Kim, thank you for coming on the Unashamed podcast. God bless you for what you're doing. And thank you for being one of our partners. Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube. And be sure to click the little bell and choose all notifications to watch every episode.